Oh, let me get out of the way then.
Her
This should
attorney
be
is
very
Mario
interesting.
Williams. He's here, I know, somewhere. There you go. How are you?
Afternoon.
Glad you could make it.
Yes.
I'll let Mr.
Oh.
Williams come sit with you. We always will allow anybody testifying in this committee to be represented by counsel or assisted by counsel. I'm going to need you to raise
It's
your right hand.
Mario
as I swear you
again.
in. You swear the testimony you will give before this committee will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
All right, please introduce yourself to the committee.
Okay, I know most of you. I am Representative Misha Maynor. I serve the great state of Georgia, and I am the proud mother of two girls, a 12-year-old and an 18-year-old. And unfortunately, I'm also the victim of stalking, not just myself, but my family as well. And as a victim, on behalf of all the other victims in the state of Georgia, I'm fighting for myself and them to make sure that our systems are doing what they should to protect women.
Tell us a little bit about your incident and whether the accused has been prosecuted.
So, yes, the accused spent 1 year in jail. Part of that year was not because he was sentenced and he pled nolo eventually, but he was found guilty. Part of the reason he was in jail for a year, though, is because he continued to contact me with a restraining order in place. And the justice system had to basically let Fulton County know that they needed to do an emergency bond revocation to lock him up so he would leave me alone, basically. So he was in jail for part of that time because he was not abiding by the restraining order. And then I believe he wanted to go to court, essentially. And at the very end, he was given a plea deal and I was not involved in that whatsoever.
Do you feel like you should have been involved in that?
The law says that I was supposed to be involved with that.
And in what county was he prosecuted?
Fulton County.
When was this chronologically? Was this
Oh, gosh.
years and years ago or 6 months ago?
It started in 2019. And, I want to say here today, just last month, I had to call the police because this man reached out to my 18-year-old daughter. So this has been an ongoing issue for me. He was released in 2021. No, 2020. It gets so confusing. I'm sorry because it's been so long, but once he was released, he immediately began stalking me again. There was an incident here at the Capitol. The Capitol Police did a police report on it. Atlanta police have done several different investigations for it. Just recently, before he reached out to my daughter, it was during campaign season and he decided he was going to run against me, which is completely fine. The problem, though, was the Fulton County judge said that his rights to run for office were more important than my right to be protected. And so there was a moment that I did not have a restraining order because the restraining order would have violated his rights to run for office.
Okay. So what rights did you have as a victim that were not honored?
One, it's Marsy's Law. The General Assembly enacted Marsy's Law, and that pretty much gives certain crime victims certain rights. And some of those rights are to be actively involved in your case, to make sure that you're giving prosecutors or the state information about your case. In my case in particular, I gave the DA's office over 30 witnesses. They asked me for their names, their addresses, their phone numbers, dates of birth. There were even clergy from my church that were witnesses because my stalker ended up joining my church. And the DA's office did not interview one single witness or contact any witnesses.
Who was the DA at the time that request was made?
It was Fonnie Willis.
Is there an ongoing prosecution of this gentleman?
It is not.
Are you making ongoing complaints of continued stalking?
I am. In fact, things have just been so busy. I filed the police report when he contacted my daughter. The police investigated it. They found that he did, but since I didn't have the restraining order anymore, they asked me to go and get another restraining order. So I'll probably go back down to Fulton County again right after this to get another restraining order because they said that he couldn't have one when he was running for office.
Was this man convicted of stalking you?
He was convicted of stalking me. In fact, he had 2 indictments for stalking. It became aggravated stalking. And part of the plea deal, District Attorney Fonnie Willis ended up basically making felony aggravated stalking a misdemeanor for one of them, just failure to abide by a restraining order. But she did the 1 year for aggravated stalking and 2 years probation for a total of 3 years.
And he served some portion of that in jail.
He did because he violated the restraining order and had an emergency bond revocation. And so he was locked back up.
So what are you saying should have been done? I mean, do you think as a victim, you get the right to dictate the sentence or?
No,
Did he plead guilty or was there a jury trial?
no, it wasn't a trial because the Fulton County gave him a plea deal.
Okay.
And so he pled no.
Notified of that before it was done?
I was not notified. There is a long trail of emails that I have had going back and forth between myself and the DA's office. It's probably nauseating to them, but just for me, I understand the importance of a paper trail. So there are hundreds and hundreds of emails that I have sent back and forth. Some of them they have responded to, some of them they did not. I have actively asked to be involved because they were releasing him at times when he would get locked up for violating their restraining order, and I was not even notified that he was being released, which is another right of mine from Marcy's Law. But on the day the DA's office called me, I remember being in my car and they basically said, we have decided to give him a plea deal, and they told me what the plea deal was.
So the DA did at least advise you of that.
Yes.
Okay.
And I said, well, I don't agree with that. And they said, well, it's nothing we can do about it right now because we've already told the other attorney about it. And because of some kind of things between attorneys, I don't really know because I'm not an attorney, that since she had given this other attorney, the defendant's attorney, the plea deal already, she could not go back on it. And I basically was like, so his rights again are more important than my rights.
Were you advised of your right to be present at the plea hearing where the judge was determining whether or not to accept that plea bargain?
Yes, I did go. I went with a Fulton County investigator, and I do want to give a shout out to the investigators that protect, women in these sorts of situations. She actually escorted me to the court. I knew my right to make a statement. I told the DA's office that I wanted to make a statement. Literally, the hearing was almost over. And the investigator said, well, didn't you want to make a statement? I said, yes. The investigator kind of made a little commotion in the court. That kind of forced the DA's office to say, oh, the victim is here and she does want to make a statement.
Okay. So your statement was heard before the sentence was imposed?
It was. And one of the things that I asked the judge for was a psychiatric eval for the defendant. And the judge, to my recollection, was asked the Fulton County, why didn't they put that in the order? And she agreed with me that it was feasible that he should have a psychiatric eval.
Okay.
So that was added.
So then after he served his time, he was let out of jail. And you feel like Marcy's law requires you to be notified of that?
Correct.
We're not notified of that?
I was not notified. I saw him in the community following me, and that has basically continued in different manners.
So how do you feel that District Attorney Willis has failed to comply with Marcy's law?
She violated Marcy's law by not notifying me of one, the plea deal. I think that's the most important thing to me. I was begging, really, I want to be involved in this case. The other thing is she is required to, I'll tell you one thing that she did that I did not like. There was an instance where he was following me. I contacted the police. The police did an investigation. They found, sure indeed, he did violate the restraining order. But instead of going to the judge to, file a warrant to say he violated the restraining order, what he did was he went to the DA's office first, and the DA's office said, I'm not going to prosecute anything related to her cases. And so he basically came back and was like,
What do you mean? Your cases that would not be prosecuted?
correct,
Who said that?
Officer Hill. And so as we were trying to, even now, a few years ago, when I was trying to get information together, because I eventually tried to seek help just through the court system for a remedy, I emailed him and I asked him, shortly after that, and again, I might be mixing the dates up a little bit, but did he put that in the police report that the DA said she was not going to be prosecuting any of my cases? And he responded back and said he was on vacation and he'll check when he gets back in town.
Did you have personal communications with DA Willis? You said you had a lot of emails. Is that just with the DA's office or with her?
It's been both. So at one point there's a second piece to this that has nothing to do with why I'm here today, but I did go in for an interview at the DA's office because there was so much communication back and forth. And so they said, just come in. And my stalker's attorney is Fulton County Commissioner Marvin Arrington. And there were a lot of things happening, that should not have been happening, in my opinion, because Marvin Arrington was his attorney. And I brought that up to the DA's office. There are jail calls. I ended up getting the jail tapes because someone else from the news media actually told me that my stalker was talking about me and doing different things on the jail calls. So I did open records request to get these jail calls. And then with that, when I went to the DA's office, I told her, some of the things that they were saying, because the stalker and Fulton County Commissioner Marvin Arrington were basically talking about how they did not want Judge Ellerby on the case. And there was a moment of trying to shop for judges. They were really trying to get one judge in particular. And when I spoke to the DA's office in front of her about that, she basically said, we know which judges give Commissioner Arrington preferential treatment, and Judge Ellerby is not one of them.
Okay. So I don't know what help you want from us. I didn't compel you to come here. You said you had some relevant information that might assist our investigation. So I had you and your attorney, notified of your opportunity to speak here.
Yes.
So it just, you want to let it be known that you, didn't get any notification before the plea deal was made and didn't get notified when this man was released. Is there anything else?
I think really more than anything is I'm an elected official, and so I kind of know how the system works. I I am savvy enough as a citizen to find information. My real concern is there are victims across the state of Georgia because they're contacting me because my story is public. They are being victimized by the system too. You're being victimized once by a defendant, and then you're being victimized again by the system. And true victims, we are constantly fighting for justice. And so it's not that I'm here to really nail in on Fonnie Willis per se. She happens to be the vessel of a broken system that I was involved with. And I'm fortunate enough to have Attorney Williams represent me, because with his help, we've been able to kind of streamline my second portion of trying to get justice for myself. But really, I want the Senate to be aware that there are other people just like me. There's no way in the world that I am the only person that this is happening to.
Well,
So do you think that she is refusing to prosecute this man because you're the victim? Is it something personal where she will not prosecute him because you're a Republican or because she doesn't like you, or what's the point of that?
I don't know, because I can't speak for her. I know I was persistent in trying to get justice for myself and my two young girls. I don't know if it was bothering her initially. Honestly, my personal opinion was Commissioner Arrington is a good friend of hers, and that was my stalker's attorney. And she was just looking out for her good friend versus looking out for me, the victim.
Mr. Williams, do you have anything you'd like to add?
the only thing I'll add to this is, generally speaking, when we think of stalking, we think of a man stalking a woman. It can go by the other way around clearly. But generally what you're thinking about is, such as the case with Rep. Maynard, having your physical and mental integrity at risk. Somebody's pursuing you. You've made a claim that in this situation, this person pled out, was indicted by two different DAs, so we're not questioning whether it's legitimate or not. So I think with a lot of people who are watching this, there's a couple of issues going on. First of all, the Georgia Code does have non-discretionary duties that are placed on district attorneys. And we know this because the Georgia Code is very plain. I have it right in front of me as to what some of those duties are. And then secondly, if you violate those duties, it actually opens up liability per the code to civil liability for that district attorney. In Rep. Maynard's case, when I came on the case, I was like, look, we got to focus on some things. But I think one of the biggest things, and she mentioned it, is a district attorney has a non-discretionary duty to evaluate the sufficiency of evidence with law enforcement to pursue warrants or not pursue warrants. So when you have someone like Rep. Maynard come to you and a law enforcement officer actually says, hey, look, we have enough here.
You're talking about the 30 names that she provided?
No, the law enforcement officer who investigated whether or not this particular stalker had violated an agreement.
Okay.
So he said,
Restraining
a restraining order. So he says, hey, look, we have something here, but I'm not going to do anything. It's a waste of time to take it to the judge because DA Willis is just not going to look at it. Now, that's scary. If you're a woman or a man and you're out there, and because I can tell you, I reviewed all this stuff. There's a million emails going back and forth. And you get in a situation where a district attorney has decided through frustration, I'm not dealing with this anymore. Well, you're not dealing with it to an extent that a law enforcement official feels like it's a waste of time to even pursue a legitimate claim, puts your life at risk.
Okay.
Okay, so then when the non-discretionary statutes also says, hey, look, you have to abide by laws that require certain conduct. That's what Marcy's law. Marcy's law is a serious law. It's not to be taken lightly. It was named after a victim. So when Marcy's law says, hey, notify me when you release the person who's been convicted of stalking you, that's for a reason. That's to mitigate fear and circumstances that can place your life in jeopardy. And when a district attorney doesn't do it, because you've been, I guess, sending a million emails over it, that's a problem.
Do you have the citation of that law, Marx's law, the code section?
Oh, the Marcy's Law, let me see where it's at. The Crime Victims Bill of Rights, 1717-1
Okay.
and 1717-11. So also, when Marcy's Law says you have to get the viewpoint of the victim when you're engaging in plea negotiations. And then you get an email back that says the district attorney does not have to consult with you when making plea deals. So then you just left thinking, okay, well, what's going on here? One issue is being invited to the actual, once the plea deal's made and seeing if a judge is going to accept it. The other issue is getting in front of it, getting the perspective from the victim when you're actually negotiating the plea. The law's in place for a reason. And when that's violated, you think, hey, what's going on?
So in this case, your contention is that District Attorney Willis did not consult with Representative Maynard before entering into the plea bargain, and then also failed to advise her when the stalker was released.
In this particular situation, District Attorney Fonnie Willis, according to the evidence that I've reviewed, did not engage Rep. Maynard as required by law in plea negotiations.
And did not
And did
notify.
not notify her prior to her convicted stalker, her stalker, being released, and then, according to this officer, created an atmosphere that when Rep. Maynard would go into the police, or this particular officer, created an atmosphere where the officer felt like it wasn't even worth taking a legitimate claim to a judge because nothing was going to be done about it.
All right. And so does the law give any remedy for that if a DA voluntarily or knowingly, willingly refuses to obey that law?
Well, what this law does say, it says if a district attorney fails to comply with this code section, he is liable to rule as an attorney at law with all penalties and remedies applicable thereto. So what that says to me is, and it's arguable, we'll get into this in court, is that things like prosecutorial immunity and stuff like that might not be available to you. Because the law saying if you violate the code section, then you're going to be held responsible just like a regular attorney at law. But that's a legal question that has to be debated. What we've done is we've amended the complaint. We served.
So you have filed a formal complaint against the DA?
There's a civil complaint that was filed by a lawyer that I wasn't a part of the first one. And so I got with Rep. Maynard and I was like, hey, look, you got to streamline this a little bit. You got to really hone this down. All this other stuff could be valid. I'm not questioning that, the validity of it, but we're going to have to amend this to get a little bit more clarity about what's going on. For example, RICO. I'm not saying that it's not a legitimate RICO, but RICO, from my experience at least, is extraordinarily complicated. Especially, I've never seen an individual win it. I only seen the government win it. So, we got rid of that. We served the original complaint. We're gonna do the judge on the complaint voluntarily recused herself. So we're waiting for a new judge. And then we'll do the amended complaint. It's pared down, and then we're gonna go forward and figure out what the law or maybe the Georgia Court of Appeals or whoever has to say about this. But to minimize and diminish what Rep. Maynard has experienced, because she's her own best advocate. And she's an advocate for her children. And so if somebody's stalking and then you have somebody's child saying, why is this man ringing the doorbell 1,000 times? And then you say, hey, I don't know, but we're going to try to find out and resolve this. And because you keep on pressing the district attorney saying, hey, right or wrong, I don't think you're doing your job right here. The answer to that is not to say, hey, I'm not touching anything with her. Or I'm not going to advise you when your stalker's released, or I don't care, you don't have a right to participate in plea negotiations. We can make a plea deal without your involvement. That's not the answer. That's a violation of the law. So when you ask Rep. Maynard what she's trying to accomplish here, she gave her answer, but what I would say is a deep dive into compliance.
Yes.
how do you report a perceived violation of the law against a district attorney in Georgia and feel that you actually are going to get a legitimate investigation into the issue?
In your investigation, are you aware of other crime victims who feel like the district attorney has not complied with Marcy's law in their cases?
I haven't looked at it because, we haven't had discovery or anything, but I'm more than sure something's out there.
So what is the remedy sought in the lawsuit that you filed? He's seeking civil damages, mandamus.
There's damages asked for, but I think more importantly, the lawsuit, when you go into civil litigation, and this is just the reality of it, civil litigation is about mainly money and damages. But to most people, that's to the public. That's what they think. But to somebody like Rep. Maynard, she's just trying to get out there and let's see if we can get some compliance going on. How can we get a fair investigation? Why do I have to be forced to file a lawsuit, go through all these immunities defenses? Everyone tell me I'm just seeking money for no reason, when really I wanted to be able to complain and have it taken seriously. And because it wasn't taken seriously, I have to file a lawsuit to try to have an attempt at being taken seriously.
Okay.
Something that, if I may, something that happened during the course of me trying to fight for myself. One of the avenues I did was I made a complaint to Fulton County Ethics, right? I could not find any information online about how do you even complain to Fulton County Ethics. I found something digging way deep. I ended up mailing it to the address that was online. And a few months later after that, there was a lady who had a P.O. box. She said, this is no longer the P.O. box for Fulton County Ethics. I reached out to Chairman Rob Pitts and said, hey, I've been trying to file an ethics complaint. There's no mechanism of filing an ethics complaint. The address is wrong. I think one thing that has come out of me fighting for this is now it is very easy to go online to Fulton County's website. Since I made the complaints, now they have clear as day a way for people to go online and file ethics complaints. Now, if they get what they need out of that, I don't know, but at least that is one solution that has occurred just from me advocating for myself.
And then the last thing I'll say, I just have to say this because the Civil Rights Compliance Division, I don't want to talk real negative on anybody. Everybody's out here trying to work hard, do a job. But something has to be looked into regarding the Civil Rights Compliance Division of Fulton County. This place is almost a joke when it comes to investigating high-level senior elected officials, district attorneys, people of that nature. I mean, I have seen evidence rock solid not even make it into an investigative file. I mean, so someone has to take a real deep dive into that compliance division because basically, based on my experience, I have a lot of experience with them, it's just a rubber stamp organization. It's just an organization that says, hey, I'm going to find a way to exonerate this public official. Regardless of how wrong the evidence makes me believe that this person engaged in unlawful or unconstitutional conduct, I'm just going to figure out how can I stop it. And that's all I'll say.
Senator Jones, do you have questions? That's all I had.
Yeah, just a couple, Mr. Chair. First, without a doubt, this happened, it took place, and I apologize for that. But I want to ask Attorney Williams something about law, legal stuff, which is one of the things in your complaint. It seemed like that the other defense attorney, there's two defense attorneys, and defense attorney comes on board, and he keeps trying to hold, I think, District Attorney Willis' feet to the fire about an earlier plea agreement that had been made by a previous district attorney. Do you think there should be a change in the law to where, let's say you have one district attorney leaves and another district attorney comes in, that they're not bound necessarily by that plea agreement? Whether there was a plea, I don't know, but that other attorney seems to think there was a plea agreement, and he kept saying, y'all have to stick with this particular plea agreement.
No.
And he was arguing, and the law says that it's basically a contract and that she couldn't break it. But I'm just asking, if you have one one district attorney makes a deal and another comes in, should that one be continually held to that standard?
That is contract principles. I'm not a criminal attorney, but I'm gonna always advocate for some discretion if I come in new to a situation and make my own type of decision. But on the opposite side of it, I would argue that, hey, if I can prove, if it's in writing and it's been legitimized through writing and we've agreed on it and signed off on it, my argument would be that, hey, you're bound by it, because it's like an agency principle in my opinion. But I feel like if you have a contract in place and an agreement in place and you can actually say that it's been signed, nobody's questioning the legitimacy of it. I would argue that you have to go forward with that.
Senator Jones, if I can add on to what he just said. So you're right. In the case, the original counselor for my stalker was adamant that DA Paul Howard had given my stalker a plea deal. The DA's office, all the ADAs had no record of that. And so towards the end, right before he was given a plea deal, Paul Howard was actually supposed to come and testify in court to say that he gave Commissioner Marvin Arrington a deal, or did he not? And instead, I mean, literally, it was in a few more days, he was supposed to do that. And then abruptly, they gave him a plea deal without asking me.
And that plea deal was to the stalking.
Yes.
Now, the first one was supposed to be like a misdemeanor though, right? The
So
one that-
saying,
Oh, right, Paul Howard, supposedly. The previous district attorney, I don't want to get into names, but the previous district attorney, he supposedly offered a misdemeanor with no jail time,
it could have been even throwing it out. I don't
or
know.
maybe even throwing it out. And so this new defense attorney comes on, because Arrington left, he comes on, District Attorney Willis now is in office. And basically he's telling District Attorney Willis, you have to stick with this plea agreement, which is either a misdemeanor or maybe even throwing it out. But the end result is, I guess she kind of breaks that contract because he pleads to a stalking. He actually pleads to a felony, right?
Well, your question was about legally, what do
Yeah.
you think you can do law-wise?
Yeah.
I am saying that one of the remedies was actually letting Paul Howard come on the witness stand to say, did you do this or did you not do this? That could have solved it.
Yeah.
Now, why they did not want him to say, I did give a plea deal or I did not give a plea deal, I don't know.
Right. I was trying to get clarification on
Yeah.
for my question, because
No, I think-
if there
I
was no
think-
plea deal offered, then the question goes away. But I'm just of the understanding that the previous DA, he was offering a misdemeanor,
The problem for him,
and
the
then,
problem for whoever was trying to enforce that is that nobody had proof of it.
right. But what did he
He
end up
says-
pleading to?
He ended up pleading to the aggravated stalking, and then it was reduced. It was reduced and he did a NOLO.
The second aggravated stalking.
But he pled to one aggravated stalking.
Yeah.
That a felony or misdemeanor?
I believe that's a
It's a
felony.
That's a
Felony.
felony. So, but it's not both aggravated stalkings, but it is the one, but it's not two. It's not, 'cause it was two of them. So one of them
That's
still.
right.
And that was because you think maybe that was because he kept saying, I have a, whether he had it or not, because we don't know because the other DA didn't take the stand, but possibly he kept saying, I have a deal, and District Attorney Willis, you better stick with it.
I'm not sure what the reason is because I can't speculate on that, but I can say this though. Based on my understanding of what I've seen about the stalker's previous counsel, Arrington Jr. And I don't, for all I know, Arrington Jr. is a good guy and stuff, but walking into a DA's office, bypassing ADAs, doing stuff that clearly draws into question ethical responsibilities and the law, just put a kind of stain on the whole process and actually what was really going on between Arrington, DA Willis, and Arrington's client, the stalker in this case. Because when I'm looking at this stuff, I'm thinking, I know even if I was a criminal attorney, I know I can't just go and say, I'm going to go over and I'm going to walk right into Fonnie Willis's office and I'm going to say, hey, let's talk. I can't bypass ADAs. I can't have conversations on the phone and say crazy stuff that's recorded and nobody ever investigates it. So there's obviously, with positions of authority comes some discretions and different things like that, but it just goes back to the point I was making earlier. You got to have an investigative mechanism on some of this stuff that people cannot. Nobody from the public, including lawyers, wants to feel at a disadvantage and feel that somebody is using their authority in an abusive manner. That's the problem here. It really is. Whether we're talking about D.A. Willis, whether we're talking about Marvin Arrington Jr., it's an abuse of authority, a perceived abuse of authority. So who do we go to correct this? And it can't be the Civil Rights Division of Fulton County. It can't be, because that compliance division is just, I've never seen anything like it.
And I had one other quick question, which was about the previous. Was there a previous case in this? You weren't on that one, though.
Yeah, so let me give you the case history, though, Honorable Senator. So there was a federal case filed.
And what was the result of that?
The judge allowed the state law claims to come back to state court, didn't rule on them. And then I think it was federal RICO, and the judge said, well, state RICO, federal RICO are different. I'm not going to grant you the federal RICO, go back to state court.
Did they all, I mean, who was sued in that federal case?
A lot of people. Fonnie Willis, I think Arrington Jr.
The ethics board.
The ethics board. Now, in the amended complaint, it is bad as I believe, my personal belief based on evidence, that Arrington Jr. conducted himself. He's not in the amended complaint. There's only one person. All the ethics board, they're out too. It's one person in the amended complaint. That's Fonnie Willis in her individual capacity. And hopefully we can resolve this issue, in my opinion. But we did kind of clean it up for clarity purposes and trying to go forward.
So was that first complaint just dismissed is what happened?
No, it's just waiting to be amended.
No, the first complaint.
In federal court?
Yeah, federal court.
That
It
was
got
dismissed on the federal claims. The state
Right.
claims went back to.
And they just sent the state claims down,
Yeah.
and they're pending.
Yep.
Has everybody filed the motion to summary judgment and everything?
No, because there's no judge on the case.
No judge yet.
Yeah, so, but nobody's going to be able to file a motion to dismiss except for Fonnie Willis.
Right.
When we amend the complaint, everybody else is gone.
And she filed it yet?
No,
But
because
she filed one in the federal claim and it got
Yeah, oh, yeah.
dismissed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Appreciate you all being here today and sharing your testimony, and all the district attorneys and committee members for making the effort to be here. I know it's tough in the summer to line your calendars up. Senator Kennedy had to leave. He had another Senate meeting he had to get to since we ran so long, but he told me he would be listening in on his computer as he traveled to his next meeting. But I appreciate him being here this morning as well, and all the help of our staff. And we will be adjourned until our next meeting on September the 13th at 10:30 a.m. Thank you all.
Thank
for
you.
being
Thank you so
here.
much.
You're adjourned.
thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, everybody. So are they is that it? Yeah, I don't know how long this commission is going to be going, so I don't know if there's going to be like a final word. I do think that they're just seeking to bring into place new legislation that ultimately will govern this stuff. Oh man, they didn't give me the heave ho. But all right, so that was interesting, man. Misha Maynard's story is wild. That is such a crazy story, man. And again, like, I love that somebody's pointing this out. Like, Fulton County, a lot to do, a lot to work on. There we go. Finally just ignored her, man. That's crazy. You know, this is a wild story. But yeah, September 13th. That's what I thought. Okay. Well, everybody, I want to say thank you all so much for this. I appreciate y'all not only supporting the channel. Thank you so much to Gene Lee for dropping those memberships. Thank you to everybody who's a new member. I will be doing a members only live stream tomorrow evening. You'll be seeing the invitation shortly. But I just want to say thanks so much to all of this, man. All of y'all. It just means a lot that y'all will sit here and watch this with me and give your 2 cents and chime in, all that kind of good jazz. It means a lot. So thank you. Hey, as long as y'all watching it with me, I guess I'll keep streaming them. Absolutely. So I appreciate y'all. Really does mean a lot. But later on tonight, I actually have ADA Love's opening statement for the YSL trial. I know I mentioned it before, like this, her opening statement was really wild. Well, that's coming up this evening, so check that out. And also, if you want, all of the attorneys, all of them, all 6 of them, did an opening statement, and I guess they'll also do a closing statement. So as we're getting ready to, I guess the YSL trial is getting ready to kick off round 2 or season 2, whatever you want to call it. So because of that, if you want, we can pull those up and watch them. I have Brian Steels and Max Shards, Matthews, and there's a couple others. Weinstein, there's a couple others that weren't there, that are there in the beginning, but they're not there now. So anyway, if you want to, we can do those as well. But they're all like an hour plus. So you can't do them all in one sitting. So we'll probably maybe just roll them out slowly but surely. So everybody, I want to say thank you again. I really appreciate it. Shout out to everybody who stopped by on today. Thank you so much. Thank you for making this a lot of fun. So let's do this again. We'll be doing the ADA Love opening statement. I would say it's at 6 o'clock. I'll check that real quick while we sitting here talking. I don't know why I don't have that ready, but it should be attached to this video. Matter of fact, when I end the video, it should announce it to you. Yes. So that video is going live, and it's going live at 5 o'clock. Please forgive me, not 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So I'll see you all real soon on that one. And please don't hesitate, down in the comment section, let me know what you think about this panel discussion. What do you think about the commission hearing? What do you think about it? Don't tell me about how terrible Jones is. Jones is a terrible, terrible man. But I appreciate all the other insight into such like that. So let's get going. And I will see you all this evening or this afternoon at 5. Grace and peace, everybody. Take care.